We're going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time because we expect there may be a lot of questions. We want to make sure we leave enough time for that. So thank you for attending this special session on NIOSH. Can you hear me okay? Yes? Okay, great. My name's Nicole Greason. I'm the AIHA board president till the end of today. I'd like to have my colleagues on stage introduce themselves as well, starting with Bradley.
Good morning. Good morning. Is it on? Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bradley King, and I serve until later this afternoon as president-elect of AIHA.
Morning, everybody. Larry Sloan, CEO, today, tomorrow, next week.
Hi, I'm Nancy McClellan. For 2 more hours, I'm your vice president.
Morning, folks. Eric White, at-large director.
Morning, everyone. Justine Parker, secretary-elect.
Thank you. So I'd like to review our agenda. So these are the things that we're going to cover: setting the stage, impact on the profession, AIHA's current approach, next steps, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat analysis that we did for AIHA. And then we were trying to leave plenty of time for questions and answers before we adjourn. First, I'd like to put the size of NIOSH's budget in perspective. So you can see here for 2024, the federal budget had total revenues of $4.919 trillion, expenditures of $6.752 trillion. That's why we have a deficit of $1.833 trillion, which is what this current administration is trying to eliminate. So they're trying to have a more balanced budget. So the annual NIOSH budget, $363 million. And that includes $32 million for ERCs and $12 million for the Total Worker Health Program. And then AIHA's annual budget, to give you perspective for 2025, because some people have suggested, why don't we just take over doing all the ERCs, is $18 million. So you can see that's not going to happen. Just so you've got it in perspective. So we all know that a strong NIOSH benefits not only American workers, but also other federal agencies, including OSHA, DOE, DOD, and others. When the reduction in force, or RIF, notices went out on April 1st, and then again in early May, NIOSH was faced with a significant operational crisis, resulting in drastic staffing shortages. And while the White House touted a storyline that said no programs had been cut, the very staff required to manage those programs were put on administrative leave with a pending termination date of either June 2nd or July 2nd. These cuts undermine NIOSH's ability to fulfill its congressional mandate to protect worker health and safety across the U.S. As a result, AIHA immediately began advocating for a swift restoration of mission-critical NIOSH programs in critical areas such as mining safety, occupational health disparities, and industry-specific research benefiting the very communities represented by key congressional leaders on those committees overseeing health and labor issues. As of today, we're pleased to report that some programs have been restored. Bradley will get into details shortly. However, other programs have not. This includes funding for the ERCs and research training grant programs, which run out on June 30th. However, as we look ahead to FY 2026, we face headwinds. The fiscal environment in Washington remains highly constrained, with discretionary budget caps in place for the foreseeable future. This may affect appropriations for health and safety agencies, including but not limited to OSHA and NIH. I'd like to turn the mic over to Bradley, who will review the current state of NIOSH staffing.
Great. Thank you very much, Nicole. So, what we wanted to do today was provide a little bit of information to you in terms of some of the divisions and the programs that have been impacted and have been returned. AIHA's efforts to date have really focused on the restoration of NIOSH as a whole, but also advocating for some very specific programs within NIOSH that we all recognize as critical to worker health and safety. We did make a very strong case that none of these programs are duplicated anywhere else across the federal government. So we're very pleased that we heard news this week that several of these divisions have been restored and some of their critical programs have been restored as well. So we wanted to review these to let you know what the latest status is. Our National Personal Protective Technology Laboratory has been returned. They particularly, one of the critical programs that they run is the Respirator Testing and Certification Program, which is a self-sustaining program actually funded in part by manufacturer fees that we all recognize as being essential for ensuring respirator effectiveness. Another division returned was what we call our Respiratory Health Division. One of the important programs that that division runs is our Coal Workers Health Surveillance Program, which helps to process x-rays, pulmonary function tests, as required under federal mining health standards. Also, we had our Division of Safety Research returned. They run many important programs. A couple of the critical ones they run include the Firefighter Fatality Investigation Program, as well as the Fatality Assessment and Control Evaluation, also known as FACE program. Lastly, a full division returned was our Division of Compensation Analysis and Support, which includes what we call our Energy Employees Occupational Illness Compensation Program. This is an important program that supports workers in the nation's nuclear weapons program to file compensation claims for illness due to workplace exposures. In addition to those full divisions, there are several programs that were either standalone or part of a division that was not fully restored. You may have heard about the World Trade Center Health Program. That's one of our big programs that we run at NIOSH. It provides medical monitoring and treatment of World Trade Center-related health conditions for 9/11 responders and survivors. That has been returned in full, as has our Health Hazard Evaluation Program, known as the HHE program. This program responds to requests from workers, union officials, management, to help identify causes of unexplained illness and assess the safety of new chemicals or processes within specific workplaces. Also returned is the National Firefighter Registry, or NFR, for cancer, which is a registry to study cancer among firefighters. And lastly, our Emergency Preparedness and Response Office, which is based out of Atlanta at CDC headquarters, which helps to coordinate NIOSH emergency preparedness and response activities. We were very pleased to see all these returned this past week. Unfortunately, there were still multiple NIOSH divisions that have been either partially or fully eliminated in terms of staffing. These divisions are included on this slide. So this first division on this slide is what we call our Division of Field Studies and Engineering. This was a division that has been partially returned. So I mentioned both the HHE program and the National Firefighter Registry on the previous slide. Those are the only two programs within this division that have been returned. This division, outside of those two programs, this division runs teams that focus on engineering controls, physical hazards, workers' compensation, occupational surveillance, as well as cancer and reproductive epidemiology teams. So all incredibly important topics that don't have staffing anymore. Our Health Effects Laboratory Division is a laboratory-based division, and while they do a lot of toxicology and physiology studies, laboratory-based studies, they're also critical in managing the NIOSH Manual of Analytical Methods, NMAM program, that, as you all know, helps to develop and validate new methods to meet environmental and occupational health standards that, we all use those analytical methods. Our Division of Science Integration has not been returned. The important role that they play at NIOSH is that they manage and publish all of NIOSH's authoritative recommendations programs. So those are things like our NIOSH policies on RELs, on IDLHs, on skin notations. They also manage the NIOSH Pocket Guide and Occupational Exposure Banding Strategy and eTool. Neither of our mining-specific programs have been returned, so the Spokane Mining and the Pittsburgh Mining divisions have not been returned. And then lastly, we have what is called our Western States Division. It's NIOSH's smallest division, but they do have offices in Spokane, Anchorage, and Denver, and deal with issues that are prevalent in the Western United States. Lastly, our Office of Extramural Programs, which manages and supports funding for the 18 ERCs, The 10 centers for total worker health and the 12 centers for ag safety and health have also not been restored at this time. As you can see, there's a tremendous amount of programs, mission critical programs, that are still not staffed at this point. A lot of questions that we get at AIHA over the past couple months have been related to what happens to all the public information that is on NIOSH's website. Is there a risk of that being lost? There has been an effort at the NIOSH level in the Office of the Direction with some of the few folks who are left to go do an archiving process. So I would like to point everyone to this QR code. This is the website called CDC Stacks, which is CDC's archiving system. Now, if you go to that page and scroll down to the middle, you'll see a tab specifically for NIOSH. You can, I think, access about over 12,000 NIOSH documents that are located there. They'll continue to add that. So, I don't anticipate that the NIOSH website will be going anywhere soon, but just to let folks know that there is an archiving system in place for a lot of those NIOSH numbered publications as well. We are looking at NIOSH is looking at assessing the other records that they have, including reports, data sets, and making sure that they're trying to identify an appropriate disposition pathway for those as well. So I'd like to turn the mic now over to Larry, who will review some of the key actions AIHA has taken to get us where we are today.
All right, we've been a little bit busy, haven't we? It's been a very interesting 2 months. So we've been developing a multi-pronged strategy to address the situation. And this slide lists some of the things that we've done at a very high level. First thing, going back to the beginning of April, we developed and issued a public statement that supported NIOSH, and it featured comments from President Nicole Greason. That was issued on April the 9th. We've co-signed a lot of letters. It's been a very, very busy couple months, but we've co-signed multiple coalition letters, including the Friends of NIOSH letter with over 460 signatories. So this was a mix of nonprofit organizations and schools and other institutions. We have sent these letters to various congressional committees and obviously urging the protection and the restoration of NIOSH funding and staffing. That was done April 7th and 8th. We have been supporting congressional efforts by endorsing Representative Landsman's letter. He's a Democrat from the state of Ohio, highlighting again the critical role of NIOSH in worker safety. That was signed on April the 4th. We launched 2 grassroots campaigns through our new portal, which is called VoterNet, and that has been wildly successful. We have received, through the metrics, close to 8,000 individual messages that you all have sent to your members of Congress, which is absolutely amazing. Give yourselves a round of applause. This is absolutely amazing. That demonstrates the commitment that this organization has to NIOSH, and we really appreciate that. And we're going to continue to customize campaigns as we move ahead. We are holding Hill visits with staff members of key congressional committees in both the House and the Senate. So that includes the appropriations committees, there's the House Appropriations Committee, there's the Senate Appropriations Committee, there's the Senate Help Committee, which stands for Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, and there's other committees in the House. And so there's a whole complex weaving, a landscape, if you will, of committees that govern labor and health issues. And we've got to make sure that we get ourselves in front of these committees. One of the things that I've mentioned to our board that is really clear to me through this whole experience is that nobody knows who the heck we are. Nobody knows what NIOSH is. Nobody knows what the role is of NIOSH and how it fits and how it works with other agencies in the federal government. And so our messaging has been not just that NIOSH supports workers across all industries, but it also supports other federal agencies like OSHA and MSHA and DOD and DOE and the whole slew of others. So we're making this point again and again and again. So we're going to continue to reach out and schedule meetings during the next several weeks as the discussions on the fiscal 26 budget continue. We are attempting to contact the Health and Human Services staff. So this would be Senator Kennedy's folks. We have not been successful yet, but we're going to keep trying because we need to make sure that they understand the criticality of what's going on. We are coordinating impact statements from members to amplify the human impact of NIOSH cuts in both through media and policymaker outreach. We are engaging our efforts to coalesce with other trade unions, with OPOS, which is the Association of University Programs in Occupational Health and Safety. I want to thank Susan Arnold and Rom for introducing me to OPOS. It's become my favorite acronym over the last several weeks. And so we're harmonizing our messaging between the two groups. And we've gotten in touch with AFL-CIO and some of the other unions as well. And so we're coordinating through that network. So we're really expanding our network of other coalitions and alliances. And there, as you know, there were 17 NORA councils that were representing various workplace health hazards and industry sectors, and they were established many years ago. And these groups really had provided a great opportunity to bring diverse stakeholders together to advance key research. With the RIFs, we have stepped up to help one of the reformed councils, which is the Healthy Work Design Council. And so we've created a SharePoint site, and we've encouraged folks from that council to upload documents and share information. And we're prepared to upload or to create homes, if you will, for some of the other NORA councils as we see fit. And so that's an easy thing that the association can do. And with that, I'm now going to turn it over to Nancy, who's going to tell us what is up ahead. Nancy?
Good morning, everyone. Does it feel like we're living on shifting sand these days? Yeah, every week it seems like there's a new announcement about what's changed with NIOSH, and every week it seems like another lawsuit has been filed in response, not only with NIOSH, but with a multitude of organizations. But through this, there's going to be persistent, consistent effort on behalf of AIHA, and this is what we're committed to doing. We're committed to deepen member engagement. Through the response of letter campaigns and outreach so far, we know that the power is there, but deepening that by adding the stories of the people that you know, your own story to those campaigns will be important. Then we'll also sustain that focus that we've had on the Hill, where we're ensuring that NIOSH is restored, remains a top-tier priority for AIHA. This will continue beyond the 2026 cycle and beyond. We promise not to give up. There will not be advocacy fatigue. And the profession must remain as a top of mind with the Hill. So as we sustain that focus, we'll develop leadership champions in that legislative body that will carry that message of the importance of NIOSH. That message that NIOSH must be restored and that those efforts need to continue, especially in those upcoming legislative sessions that are yet ahead of us. Next, we'll assess AIHA's role in sustaining NIOSH intellectual property. And I think that's top of mind for many of us. So you're going to see that there's going to be a continued effort for us to work with NIOSH about what is publicly available, remains publicly available, and how those assets might be maintained and kept available to all of us. In addition, we're going to engage with allied nonprofits and for-profits. People that are wiser than I have said, alone we might go fast, but together we'll go strong and farther. And that's really our intent within AIHA, is to look for those allied nonprofits and for-profits in order for us to go forward stronger, better, more effective. Larry has outlined some of those alliances. We have an inter-society forum, which is something that is more than 20 organizations, our sister organizations, namely ASSP and the National Safety Council, come to the top of the list, but those coalitions are forming and we're finding strength in that camaraderie. So the AIHA board and staff are hard at work ensuring that we maintain the proper proactive and not reactive postures, the things that we need to sustain regardless of that shifting sand that we find beneath our feet. So now Eric and Justine are going to provide us an update.
Thank you, Nancy. So many of you may be familiar with a SWOT exercise, which is a tool that businesses use to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to the organization. AIHA has taken the opportunity to develop a SWOT in response to our NIOSH efforts, so we have a collective, coherent response, and we're leveraging some of our current strengths as an organization to step up and best serve our membership and overall organization during these times. Now, Nancy's done a really good job summarizing what AIHA is doing as a whole, but Justine and I are going to build on that and show what specifically you can do as members to help support our overall efforts. Now, as many of you know, AIHA has several overall strengths, including our broad and engaged membership-based, established expertise, having a data-driven approach, a focus on policy, not politics, and an established advocacy capabilities. Now, we do recognize that our organization is smaller, and we want to stress the importance of having a collective response. So it's really important that we engage our membership, have a unified response. We partner with our sister and ally organizations to ensure that we amplify AIHA's overall response. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Everyone can hear me? Great, good morning. We are a smaller organization, but the passion and expertise that our membership makes is quite a force when we work together. Here are some ways that we can bring our strengths together. Move this forward. So we need to continue to engage in our existing advocacy efforts at an individual level, at the state and local level, including being a part of our national Restore NIOSH campaign. Our new strategic partnership with What Works Institute will be a valuable membership resource to stay updated with the latest information on how you can get involved. Every voice at this point makes a difference. We want you to make sure to utilize social media to raise public awareness about the importance of OEHS in government support. Consider liking and resharing all of the amazing AIHA content Larry's been posting and additional members have been posting. All you have to do is reshare that. I look out and see so many amazing technical and scientific leaders here, and I think you have more influence than you probably realize. Finally, contribute your scientific expertise to help guide industries and the public on OEHS matters, especially in this evolving regulatory landscape. We'll be examining additional ways you can get involved, including additional task forces and volunteer groups. We do need you now more than ever. If you haven't volunteered in a while, maybe you are a up-and-coming member of our organization and you might feel a little imposter syndrome. I really encourage you to step up and try and find those opportunities to make a difference. And also, it's from our members where we're going to learn firsthand on those evolving needs of the industry and from the public. So please don't be shy and share those ideas and share the things you're seeing and witnessing. Talk to your fellow members to get those conversations going. I have a quote that I use in my life and in my work that I think really resonates. One of the greatest mistakes we can do is to do nothing because we feel we can only do a little. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Nicole for our Q&A.
So we're going to open up now for Q&A. We have a standing mic right there in the middle aisle. So if you're interested in asking a question or have a comment, please feel free to line up now. I see Perry's already there. I will try to repeat all questions to make sure that people can hear it, but we really want everybody to use the mic rather than trying to do it from your seats to try to help with the order and making sure everybody can hear.
Mic is on? Okay. First, raise your hand if you've actually sent in a letter or done something. Raise your hand. Very positive presentation, amazing work. I just want to say that I've spent the last few days talking to a lot of colleagues just like everyone here, talked to a lot of professors, good friends, and I think there's an opportunity here. There's a real opportunity. And I've heard that actually from many of the professors. So if you can imagine being for those of you who aren't a professor right now, imagine being a professor and realizing that everything's going away for you, possible. And what I heard from them was actually inspiring, because they were saying, you know what, this is an opportunity. And I really, really appreciate the leadership by Larry, Nicole, the whole entire team to helping us move through this, because I truly believe that this is an opportunity. I want to leave you with an idea that I talked with many of my good friends, Ram and others, about. So I'm a chemical engineer. I come from a poor family. There's no money in my family to get me a college degree. However, I work hard. I was a co-op in engineering. Anybody here a co-op in engineering? Okay. Any idea how many co-ops there are every year in engineering schools? It's over 250,000 students are trained through a co-op program. The beauty of a co-op program, it's even stronger than an internship, is it's an investment by a company to bring you on for multiple semesters of training, either full-time or part-time. You get plugged right in. All of my colleagues got job offers before we even graduated. I had multiple job offers. So you can tell it works, right? You know, I was not a great chemical engineer. I was okay. Many people much smarter than me in the room. So there's an opportunity for all of us to plug into a co-op program that already exists in 300 colleges and universities right now. So we can plug right into that program. It's going to give us many benefits. Number one, it's going to get us experience, our people experience working in the field and in our communities and get paid. It's wonderful to get paid when you're a poor student, and you actually get paid really well. So let's not reinvent the wheel. That's my main takeaway for this whole group of people, because too often I've been in the room and the conversation is reinventing the wheel. The wheel was invented a long time ago. It's already there. If you look at how many students are in the ERCs every year? Anybody know? It's about 1,000, okay? So what's the ratio there? Simple math, 250x that we can plug in through the ERCs. I want to thank all of you. Great work. We got to keep it going.
Thanks, Perry. Hey, Ralph.
We all have political representatives that need to be contacted not only once, but multiple times, possibly in person. Yes. An in-person visit means a lot more than an email. So for that, to aid that, what would be really helpful is a statement that we can use for talking points with our representatives. A one-page statement would be great.
Very good comment. So the NIOSH letters that are part of the campaign contain talking points. So if you need more than that, let us know. But that second letter that went out, the Restore NIOSH letter, has all of the talking points that you can use. If you need something more succinct, or if you want it reworded, we can do that for you. But do not hesitate to let us know if you want to come to Washington. We are in the process of scheduling additional meetings. I feel like the window is closing. We are making progress. I am in contact with one of the senior health policy fellows from Senator Patty Murray's office. There apparently is going to be a congressional delegation to Spokane's facility. So we are making a difference, but we need you folks to step up and schedule visits. You can do it with us, or you can do it on your own. And they have local offices. That's exactly right. And they need to hear from, they like to hear from us, but they need to hear from you, because we are not constituents across the country.
I'll just add to that, that sometimes for your local legislation, it's easier to get a meeting with them if you are part of an organization. So maybe talk to your local sections and figure out if you want to go as a team, set up times. You may be able to get a meeting faster if you do that than if you were to try and do it on your own.
You know, first is just asking for help with all of those from AIHA, because all of these are kind of different linchpins of our programs and training and research, and we're looking for new homes, right? So first is to try to figure out how AIHA and the community, and so I've been, spending most of my time on the expo floor talking to companies, right? to figure out who is willing to step up and what that new post-NIOSH world looks like. So again, like first is I just want to talk with you. But second is really the group that I'm mostly involved with as a professor is being a methods developer for these upcoming methods. Again, I presented on Raman-based methods for RCS, but just getting to know the industry and how things work without a NIOSH standard, it's never going to get adopted. So if we're planning for a post-NIOSH world, at least for that piece, right? Do you have any ideas on how we could get new ways of getting these new techniques, new technologies out, if we can't rely on them to be the first group to tell us what's okay to do and how to do it, right? Because there's going to be new technologies, there's going to be method developers, and we might not be able to rely on NIOSH anymore to give it the green light.
Yeah, so the question was basically, how do we get validated methods without a NIOSH manual of analytical methods moving forward?
You bring up a very, very important point, and those are the things that we're working with, especially where intellectual property of NIOSH is concerned, is as that transition occurs for what AIHA can do to fill those gaps, we will look for solutions. So your point is duly noted, and we'll have to look at that as things unfold.
You know, I mentioned earlier about the collaboration that we manage with other sister associations like ASSP and National Safety Council. And we'll be having a meeting with the leaders of those two groups next week. And, you know, we still don't know what the post-NIOSH world looks like. You know, it's not solidified yet. It's not clarified. So there's still a lot of moving pieces. I've been having communications with some pretty high-level NIOSH folks that are feeling very optimistic that additional parts of the agency are going to come back. Now, if they come back, we don't know if it's going to come back forever or just for 6 months. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty. But once we get better understanding over the next few months as to what's not coming back, that's when we need to sit down and address questions and issues like yours, because we are an amazing convener, right? AIHA is an amazing convener. And I will say, and of course I'm very biased, that we are in a much stronger place to address the issues that you mentioned versus some of those other organizations. And I think that NIOSH recognizes the unique position that AIHA is under to start to step up to figure out how to manage the standards and things like that. I mentioned, again, the Healthy Work Design Council. We were invited to a call, and there were probably 40 people on the call from various organizations, right? And so it was suggested that AIHA create a SharePoint site for folks to basically upload and share resources. We can do that for that council too. It's free. We can upload, we can create SharePoint sites for a variety of councils. Now, we can't necessarily do a lot of day-to-day management, if you will, or facilitation, but if there's a corpus of volunteers within that council that can help arrange phone calls, you know, we can give you a Teams account and whatnot, that's not a problem. That's the easy part of all this. That's what AIHA is very good at, is creating these communities of practice. And so as some of these councils do reform informally, we can step in.
Larry.
Well, I'm sort of tunnel visioned on the educational side. I counted back, and I've been part of an ERC, 2 of them sequentially since 1981. Scary. I want Anthony Hopkins to play me when they do the I hope he's still around with enough hair, maybe. I did a back of the envelope calculation, and I think there have been about 105, 110 IH traineeships in place each year across ERCs and TPGs, with about half of those graduating each year, figuring most of them are for masters. And maybe 10 total worker health traineeships. That's more of a guess. There will be some occupational medicine residencies close because of this, and some, thank goodness ours, has found enough other funding for a couple of new residents a year. That's about the throughput of a typical residency. There'll be a loss of some specific ones like occupational epidemiology. I don't know the number of safety traineeships since we don't happen to have those, but there are certainly some. There'll be a loss of some IH programs that suddenly become too small in terms of number of students. Some programs happen to be hit because of their own factors with few faculty, and there'll probably be freezes in recruiting and so on for the other reasons about grants and indirect cost. So we'll lose some programs, but I have no idea how many. My own theory is programs that are in more rural areas without a built-in student catchment area will have more trouble. Those in big cities perhaps can draw students. Well, I'll stop talking. That's kind of the impact I think we're looking at. Our ERC was up for competing renewal, and they didn't even hold a review session. So even though there are funds in the continuing the CR, they won't, I think just from pure bureaucratic requirements, they can't be dispersed because there's no review session and the other requirements. So we think the ERC is gone for at least the coming year and therefore forever. They've been going 48 years maybe, an astonishing record for government programs.
Thanks, Larry.
Hi, I'm Margaret Phillips, recently retired from the University of Oklahoma. As I pointed out to my members of Congress when I wrote to them, NIOSH exists. It was mandated by the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970. If I recollect, it was sections 19 and 20 of that act. And therefore, I have trouble with the whole concept of a post-NIOSH world, the way I have trouble with the concept of a post-rule of law world and a post-constitutional United States.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Fantastic discussion today. I've been immersed in this just as everybody else has for the past couple months. I'm John Doney with What Works. I've been working really closely with Larry and the team here on some of these issues. To kind of extrapolate a little bit on the post-NIOSH world, and Larry, we've had this discussion, but maybe just open it up a little bit. My biggest concern is, I think there are a lot of boards and a lot of folks ready to pick up the pieces once we know what they might be. The funding's questionable. That's a big, obviously a big issue. But the drive and the energy's there. What I think we might miss, even as we pick up those pieces, is the strategic overlay and the sort of single source that we get out of NIOSH. Because it's so large, we can count on it to be strategic, drive in a direction, disseminate everything coherently, and stitch together what it's doing on the social science safety research side and the field research side and the hazard exposure side, et cetera, et cetera. So my point here is really that as we go into that post-NIOSH world, I think we need to think very, very carefully about coordination at a macro level, and whether that comes from a government agency or in partnership with what's left at NIOSH. I think it's really important to engage the senior leadership there to figure out the overall collaborative strategy and structure. So just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Hi, I'm Fred Bolter. So I'm a CPAG member, and I've been in this profession for more than 50 years. It's my only profession. What I want to ask is, how many of you are involved with the topic of TSCA? The reason I bring this up is we're not going away as a profession. Our demands and expertise are expanding. And it's not just about NIOSH. I'm telling you, I am terribly disappointed with what's happening with NIOSH, but we have to think about the other things that are demanding our experiences and services. The question was brought up about laboratories, for example. Laboratories and validated methods are a huge issue with TSCA. We are being asked to measure concentrations that are below validated measurements. The TSCA task force, which is now an advisory group, is focusing on a whole variety of issues, that are word substitutions for the things we're talking about here with NIOSH. I am terribly disappointed with seeing what's happening with NIOSH, but EPA, for all of the great things that they do, don't have the capacity that our profession represents with emerging issues. So, for every door that closes, another one opens. Pay attention to the ones that are opening. Don't regret the ones that are closing. But there's an incredible demand for the work that we do, our knowledge and capacity, and the assistance that are being asked of by workers.
Thank you. So opportunities for our profession related to EPA TSCA changes.
Just a quick comment about that. Just again, there was a TSCA advisory group meeting yesterday, and I just want to reiterate what Fred said, that AIHA is known as a convener, and the fact that we have this advisory group, it's bringing together the IH community and the various industry sectors. And so there's representatives in this advisory group from the American Chemistry Council, the National Association of Manufacturers, API, and other trade associations. And EPA recognizes the fact that we are nonpartisan and that we're not representing a particular industry. That gives us a stronger position to have those discussions with EPA staff and talk about difficult issues like the ECHLs and how we're going to measure to the ECHLs and who's going to enforce the ECHLs. So to Fred's point, our role is more important than ever with respect to things like TSCA.
Okay, hi, my name is Alexis Lupus. I'm going to be graduating here within the next year, and I'm going to be serving as our student chapter president for this upcoming school year. And something that has been really heavy on my mind is looking at the job market, because I'm not going to school for fun. I'm hopefully going to get a job and make money, right? And so I don't know if there's been any talk about what the job market's going to look like for students, especially those that are getting their master's or PhD. Has there been any talks, and it's okay if the answer is we don't know, about what the job market is going to look like following these changes?
So we did a study last summer and fall, which of course was the old normal. And the study was basically a repeat of a former NIOSH study that was done in 2011. It was a massive study. And we had asked NIOSH to do a part two, if you will, a follow-up, and for a variety of reasons they could not do so. So we took it upon ourselves to launch the survey last summer and fall. And so the output of the survey showed that the industries that responded are hiring 1, 2, 3 folks. Now, that was before January 20th. I still think that companies are hiring, and to Fred's point again, we're not going away. We're not going away. And so I think without a NIOSH in its current form or former form, I do believe that there's going to be a greater need for you folks in the field. So I'm still optimistic that there's going to be opportunities for folks like you. What school do you go to?
I go to Utah State.
Okay.
And we have a lot of new students coming into our program. So at least that's some good news that I can bring if they get nervous.
I remain bullish about that.
Yeah. So, okay, thank you so much.
So the question from Kathy is, has anybody else heard that ASTM is going to take over the NIOSH Manual of Analytical Methods? Thank you. So the answer was ASTM may be able to develop future methods, but because of copyright issue, because they would want the copyright to the NIOSH manual, which is probably not going to happen. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bradley.
I did want to just comment on that. So, in my day job, I do work at NIOSH, and I've been in connection with a lot of the folks that have remained at NIOSH in the office of the director, during the time period of the last couple of months. And, we've gotten a lot of questions come to AIHA about what happens to all the content on NIOSH's website and all of those documents and, all of the tools. And the consistent message that I've gotten back from them is that, they have some internal plans, whether it's the archiving of, all of the NIOSH numbered publications on this site, but that there has been no plans and no discussion about transferring those types of tools or programs or documentation or data to outside organizations. So, we had offered as AIHA to be an archiving system if it was needed. They said, we'll let you know if it comes out to a place where we feel like that needs to happen. So I've not heard anything of transferring that type of a program related to the NIOSH Analytical Methods program to an external organization. like zero. I've heard nothing about that. So I don't think that there is efforts. It wouldn't surprise me if ASTM reached out to NIOSH to say, hey, we might be a resource if it comes to a point where NIOSH feels like they can't manage that. But the consistent message I've got is that NIOSH is not interested in transferring any type of program at this point until a little bit more clarity occurs with what's going to happen with NIOSH. So.
Good morning. My name is Shannon Newton, and I teach industrial hygiene at a small NIOSH training project grant university. And so I wanted to bring awareness to the ERCs and the TPGs. We train people who are going to be the future of industrial hygiene, and we need all of us who are older to look at the Industrial Hygiene Foundation. We're setting up through our local sections some pass-through scholarships, and that's a really important draw. Our traineeships were a draw for students to come into industrial hygiene. They were medical students who didn't want to do medicine, they want to do prevention. They're engineers, like I, who came in because they wanted to do the health side of things. And so that was one draw into our programs. And so those are not coming back. So in the next few years, we want to make sure as professionals that we're supporting those scholarships that are going to pop up on the foundation, because those are going to help us draw our future into the program. And it's very important that we work with industry partners as well as within our own to promote our pipeline.
Thank you. So the comment was about use of the American Industrial Hygiene Foundation, AIHF, for scholarships for students who will no longer be getting them through the ERC. So I will say this year we gave out $199,975, if I remember correctly, dollars for scholarships. Some of them are pass-through, just like you said. So local sections or other entities have set up pass-through ones, and they may have those funds restricted for maybe people from their local section or certain school or whatever. And so the foundation does already exist, and we certainly can accept additional funding for scholarships, whether it's an endowment or pass-through or what have you. So yes, that mechanism already exists, and we can certainly add to it. Did you want to say any more, Larry?
Just real quick, to your point, just as a reminder, we had an academic faculty luncheon on Monday, and we had about 50 folks show up, and it was a little bit of a therapy session. But that was the point, is to get everybody together. We are reforming what's called an academic advisory group, and it's open to anybody who is in the faculty space, whether you're an adjunct all the way up to a full. We want to have discussions about what schools are doing to fill that gap if the funding does discontinue from the ERCs or the TPGs, because it's a very important issue. Some schools are not as concerned about it as others. There's a range of responses that we heard on Monday. And so we are committed to supporting the academic community. I'm very excited about bringing everybody together. It's a joint effort between AIHA and ACGIH.
Hi, Patrick O'Shaughnessy. I'm the ERC director at the University of Iowa. First of all, I want to thank you, Larry, Nicole, and everyone at AIHA for your advocacy. This is hugely important. Everyone else here who's been sending letters, phone calls, et cetera. This is our time to stand up and support NIOSH, so I'm very grateful for that. Personally, and on behalf of our students at the University of Iowa and across the country at the TPGs and ERCs, I have a question and a comment. It's about why NIOSH. Right? There's no other agency that I know of that's been hit this hard except for USAID. And so we've been, as a member of OPAS, is this acronym, this has been about a 20-year organization. We can fan out across the Hill each year. We've been advocating for NIOSH and the centers for that long. It goes back to the Obama administration when he asked us out of his budget as a sacrificial victim, so to speak. At the time, we had Tom Harkin would push us back in, thankfully. So this has been going on for a long time, and the idea has always been about relevancy, that Congress doesn't understand the relevancy of NIOSH. And here we are still to this day trying to push that back, that they are relevant, they have a place, they have multiple associations across multiple agencies, this is important, but still, someone doesn't know that and still doesn't know that, and why? Why is it that they got the target and not some other agency? And if we understand that question, then we know how to hit back. And we're taking it from our own centric view
Well, of course we understand the relevancy, right? There's just no question about this. But still, someone decides against this. And I hate to say, and I'm getting dark now, that there's an ideological issue going on here, which is driving its administration's decisions that go to DEI, right? Women, everyone, all those words now that are X'd out. And I hate to say that workers and unions, if they're not directly on that list, are also part of Project 2025's hit list. And I'm afraid that NIOSH, okay, now again, I'm just getting dark, this is all theory, is in that grouping of types of entities within the federal government that are anti-oligarch, basically. And so I'm just wondering again, after I've spouted off my views, if you have any thoughts like that, or anything else that we can push back on directly as to why NIOSH got this hit.
There were 2 hearings last week. There was one with the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Labor Health, and then there was a Senate Help Committee hearing. And so a lot of the visits that we had conducted over the last couple months targeted on members of those 2 committees. And there were a lot of questions that were asked of Secretary Kennedy. He has no clue. He doesn't know what he doesn't know. And when he was pressed to ask and to defend why the cuts were made, he could not answer. And so the answer to your question is nobody seems to know. We have heard that CDC was given some sort of a mandate to cut. We don't know if that's true or not. He did say in the hearings that he ultimately approved the cuts. He doesn't know what he cut. And the people that advised him are 20-somethings who don't know even how to spell NIOSH. So not to get comical on you, but one hand doesn't know what the other one is doing. Every single meeting that we've had over the last 2 months, Republican or Democrat, they're all completely clueless as to why and what the genesis of these cuts was. And that's not an answer to your question. We're trying to set up meetings with HHS staff to get to the root of the issue to make sure that these people at the HHS understand what they've cut. So it's not an answer, but we'll keep trying.
I would say we've heard some things that they're trying to cut duplication. So we were trying to make the argument that NIOSH is not duplicated elsewhere in HHS.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Jim McLaughlin. I work for NIOSH for 22 years and taught at Purdue University for 16 years. And still active in the profession because I care about safety and health of the workers. And my take-home lesson, I think, for the students in particular, the key is follow the money. If you follow the money, you can kind of get to the source of what's going on. We talk about NIOSH cuts. NIOSH had a $365 million a year budget. Of that, $70 million went to the universities, the ERCs and TPGs, and that really was the birthing center for the future of the profession, in my opinion. Because every time I take a poll of anyone on committees, how many people were supported by NIOSH, about 3/4 of those raised their emoji hands. And so that concerns me, quite a bit. So I'm in regular touch with my senators in the state of Michigan, and they say, you're not going to believe the stuff they're doing right now. He said, NIOSH has been like an editing process, just clipped and cut on the floor. And they're looking at much, much bigger issues, the Medicaid issues and so on. But even the people who are more conservative want even bigger budget cuts because of the deficit. So again, going back and following the money. But my, at least with the way I'm thinking and looking into the future, I think the midterms are going to be very important, when they come up. And that's really where we need to put a lot of our energy, because really the House needs to take back control of the budget. If it's appropriated, it should be given out. With NIOSH, I'm not really sure NIOSH can be reconstituted. This is my last talking point, because once you've done it and you've scattered these subject matter experts, to the winds, it's so hard to reconstitute. And I had been serving in the government, I'm kind of dating myself, since the Nixon administration when I was in the military. But then with NIOSH, through all these other administrations, when there were feuds over budget appropriations, and you'd have government shutdowns. And I see everyone up there has been through at least those experiences. And NIOSH It was crazy. I was a commissioned officer in NIOSH and considered essential personnel, and so brought back to the facility to work, but all the other support personnel weren't there. So we pretty much wandered the hallways, worked on papers and things of that nature to get stuff done. And we talk about some groups being called back to NIOSH, the firefighters registry and coal miner evaluations and so on. But the problem is this, is that they've only called back, those essential personnel. And so I'm talking to some NIOSH people that were called back, and I said, well, what are you doing? So we can't do a whole lot because we don't have the technicians, the secretaries, the infrastructure to really get the things done that we had been doing before the cuts. So that's a big major concern. So it looks like we have a silver lining there, but to me it's a little bit of a false silver lining because yes, they're called back, but what are they doing? And I asked one of the NIOSH employees, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm trying my very best to edit and approve and get manuscripts out the door that many of the scientists at NIOSH have been working on. I said, are you doing anything else? Are you doing any future work for NIOSH? He said, no, we're told we can't do much of that at all. So basically, when you look at the bigger picture, in my opinion, we should really be looking at any way that we can support our students, definitely a future of this profession, as best we can, either personally or professionally or through companies. But the most important thing is guide all of our efforts toward the midterms so that we can rebalance this equation and have government function for the people, for the working people of America.
All right, thank you, Jim. Great, thank you.
My name is Mark Stepano, and I'm here representing myself, okay? I am a 30-year industrial hygienist. I live in upstate New York. I happen to live in the congressional district of one Elise Stefanik. You probably all know her name, okay? She and I don't agree on much, all right? But I am right now working with a large state agency that is having problems with drug and pesticide exposures to their members, and with many people ending up in the hospital. And my intention and plan I have developed, sitting here listening to you all as a constituent, which you all are, please go be one, is to tell her that that work would be meaningless if I did not have the NIOSH analytical method to be able to take those samples and know that they were accurate. So I've learned here to tell stories. I'm going to tell her a story. I'm going to hope she's going to hear it, understand the value of it. I would encourage you all to do the same thing with your representatives, because when you talk to these folks, you're a force multiplier. When they hear you, they will add on a multiplier, depending on where you are in the country, of 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000. So go out and be that force multiplier for the National Institute for Occupational Safety.
Thank you. And we have heard that repeatedly, that congressmen want to hear and women want to hear from their own constituents, and they do seem to respond better to stories. So if you can make it personal, how it impacted you. You were a NIOSH trainee recipient. You use the analytical methods. You use the hazardous drug list, whatever it is. You use the pocket guide. That is more impactful. So excellent point. Thank you. So thank you all for attending this morning. Your interest is greatly appreciated. I'm glad we had such a great turnout and so many great comments and questions. So thank you all for your participation. As a reminder, I've had this up for a while. There is a survey. Some of you may have already filled it out. You are allowed to fill it out more than once. So now if you have more comments to submit to us after today's session, feel free to do so. Thank you all.